I make a promise to my family that next time we met, I'm gonna be not as lean as you see now, and I'm gonna be strong, have more muscular definitions, and be a more mature and healthy adult. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Andy, and welcome to another episode of the Ripped Body podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Brian. Brian's an engineer living in New York and a disciplined calisthenics enthusiast, and one of the most thoughtful guests I've ever had on. 18 months ago, when Brian returned to Malaysia to visit his family, his parents commented that they were worried about how skinny he had gotten. They didn't realize, and nor did he tell them, how hard that he'd been working to unfatten himself after an unsuccessful dream bulk. Nonetheless, he made a promise to his family that the next time they saw him, he'd be bigger, stronger, healthier, and more confident. And since then, he's been tracking his calories, weighing himself daily, and he's emailed me to ask some of the smartest and most self-aware questions that I've ever had, and that frankly, most people avoid. So in today's episode, we'll talk about how his mindset has evolved, the trap of trying to gain muscle without any fat, and what it will take for him to gain the 10 pounds of muscle that he is after. Let's dive in.
I started training consistently about 18 months ago. I started with weight training, but I switched to calisthenics about September, October last year.
Yeah. And what made you start?
Training consistently or start calisthenics?
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, good question. So was that the first time that you actually started any kind of serious training, physical training, or had you done something before?
I would say I was on and off. I was done something before for, let's say, 6 months in program and stop. But I started taking seriously about November 2023. This is when I taking it seriously. Yeah.
And why did you start taking it seriously then?
Yeah, I was quite skinny at the time.
Yeah.
Around very skinny. 125 pounds. And I remember my family looked at me and said, "Hey, you are pretty skinny. You gotta eat more." And this is when I haven't seen them for a while, for quite some time, COVID.
Okay.
And they felt pretty sad when I come back and visit them. They did cook a lot of food, treat me well, and make sure that, hey, gotta take nutrition seriously. And yep, everything is good. And before I left, I make a promise to my family that next time we met, I'm gonna be not as lean as you see now, and I'm gonna be strong, have more muscular definitions, and be a more mature and healthy adult. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It's not often that somebody hears a comment like that, and then, especially from their parents, and then they actually take what their parents say so seriously. But you said in your application questions that you read or watch some kind of fitness content every day.
Yeah.
And you also sent over your tracking spreadsheets so that I could review that before the call. You've been logging your weight and your calories for the most part for the last 18 months. You've emailed me 3 times now with some really pointed, great questions that I was able to turn into newsletters that we're going to dig into, and some of the listeners here are going to recognize them from the past couple of months because I've shared those in the Friday newsletter. So in the past 18 months then, how has your physique changed? And sorry, you said you'd gone home. I've got here that you're living in the United States, but where is home then for you?
Oh yeah, so my parents are in Malaysia, which is not in States. I live in the State. I have some relative here in the States. So I gone home to visit my families 18 months ago. Yeah.
And had you lost weight since you last saw them?
I did lose quite a bit of weight during COVID time. This is when I started dieting myself, mostly staying at home, no activities, and I did not do any workout either. So my calorie intake was very low, and I can see myself that everything is being shrink.
So was this a purposeful decision then to diet? It wasn't accidental.
Looking back, I would say it was a purposeful because I did do some kind of dirty bulking right before COVID. That makes my physique just baggy, and I don't want that look. When I say baggy, it is not like very, very heavy from the gym bro standpoint. It's just from my physique wise, it makes me uncomfortable.
I see. Yeah. But that was perhaps what your parents or your family back in Malaysia were used to seeing. And then they'd seen something different. And of course, they weren't there every day or week or month to see those changes. And so the change when you went back home, it really hit them and they worried a little. Does that capture what happened?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. So that situation's very specific, but the experience can be quite common. Did you explain what you had done and why you had lost a little weight at that time?
I did not explain much, but from what I can tell, my parents just thought that I was very stressed at work. Possibly just not eating well, maybe just staying overnight, things like that. I think that's just their conceptions.
Yeah.
I think I could have done better explaining, thoughts there.
Yeah, it's easy to do or not do when it's your parents, right? Sharing those things. Because it can be quite uncomfortable because the stuff that we do here, we're trying to change our physiques. And often this can come from a place of insecurity with how we look. And so then if we're going to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it, we're going to have to share a vulnerability. And most of us, especially guys, we're not used to doing that. So I understand why you didn't do that. I'm certainly guilty of that as well. And I'm not going to suggest that you do that moving forward because I understand that may be difficult. One thing that you might do next time you see them is share instead your excitement for the changes that you've made and what you've been doing, because then that's immediately going to flip the script on things.
Right.
So you're getting in before their worry can start coming in. Not that I think they'll be worried now. You've gained a good 10 pounds here. You estimate around half of that might be muscle. It may be more, actually, given how slowly and methodically you've been taking things. Do you see the changes in your physique if you look at a picture of yourself 18 months ago and now?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did take progress pictures, photos. I do see some difference in my physique wise.
Can you
Which I'm
describe
happy
what you
with.
see? Great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think my pictures wise, frame size is a little bit more defined, has some more structures on the shoulder, the chest, the arms. This is a good sign, and I'm happy with the progress so far, and I just want to keep continuing it and keep progressing with my weight, my training, everything.
All right. I like it. So let's dig in. You've emailed me a couple of times over the last few months, as I've said. What is it do you remember what you emailed me to ask about?
Yeah. I remember when I signed up for the transformation kickstart course from the website, there's like a action item once you read the email, like that you got to do what, right? What you're going to buy. I think one of the things is that you recommend starting tracking progress, having a small digital foot scale and a body weight measurement tape, which I bought it. And I think I still remember I asking you how to track the food because I'm very fortunate to be in a company where they provide free food. So, and I have been thinking myself, how do I track the food when all the employees are eating there in the cafeteria? So I think this is the first question I email you. How do I not feel awkward? Things like that.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. I hadn't actually remembered that specific one. I'd seen the two after. So you're right. And actually, there are some people that are in this position where food is provided. Rich, who was on a few episodes ago. He's in a similar situation at work. We talked about this then. He actually takes his food into the office. He decides to do that. He just prefers it, but it's certainly not the only solution. Do you remember what it is that I suggested to you?
Yeah, I remember you suggest us to eat around the same meal for 5 days a week during the workday and keep repeating it so that we just have to do it once. And then we definitely need to keep an eye on the calories intake because fats may be more than we capture. So we might need to like add some buffer to account for the total calories there.
Yeah, exactly. So let's break that down. So when you're in a kitchen, when you're a chef, your goal is to make delicious food. If you type into YouTube, Marco White or Gordon Ramsay, omelette, how much butter do they throw into the pan when they're making those omelettes? It is a lot. Okay, right? There is a very large chunk there, right? Why? Because that's absolutely delicious. Unfortunately, it's not the best for our heart health. Unfortunately, it's not the best for those of us who are trying to be conscious of our calorie intake. And so we need to be mindful that the amounts of fat that we would use at home versus what we have when we eat out is going to be different. Also, one more specific item here, meat choices. Fattier cuts of meat tend to be tastier. And very often, especially in the States, they tend to be cheaper. And in the UK and most countries, I'm thinking of that very marbled meat that I've seen in Japan over the years. That is very expensive, but generally speaking, like fattier cuts of meat are the cheaper cuts of meat. And in a cafeteria type situation where you're trying to, I don't know where you work, but let's say it's Facebook, for example, and they're feeding 50,000 people or whatever it is. No, I think it's more like 20. It's a campus that's like Disney World just outside of SF. A friend of mine took me there. He worked there for many years. It's just incredible. But when you're feeding so many people, if you start choosing a slightly different cut of meat, that is now a slightly cheaper cut of meat. Those costs very quickly, or those savings rather, very, very quickly add up. So that also needs to be factored in as well. So when you are having the food in that cafeteria situation, it's probably going to have more calories than the same food that you would cook at home, even though it looks the same.
Right.
And so my suggestion to people is you can still eat that food when at work, but there are some specific things that we can do. Ideally, if the food doesn't rotate too much, you keep to the same few lunch meals. In most situations, it's at lunch. If these companies are super smart and they're working you to death, then they'll do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they'll do your dry cleaning, and they'll have like a little play area and everything. I've seen it. It's insane. So it's absolutely insane. They give you all the toys at the office, so you never want to leave the office. And they put Wi-Fi on your buses, so that as you're going back into the city, you can still work for that next half an hour. It's a little bit sick, actually. But anyway, I digress. So let's get back. So
you're on point. You're on point. I mean, there's still massage room.
There's a massage room. Oh my God.
Yeah. Not lying.
Wow. Is it, for the massage room, is it like engineers only, or do they open it to people? Is it like important employees only, or is it open to everyone?
Saw the employee in the buildings.
Oh dear. Anyway, point here, if you can keep to say the same 5-ish meals and have those on rotation, then you only need to estimate the calories in that once. And you can do that by cooking something similar at home, or you could do it by searching for what that general food item is. For example, chili con carne, beef. You would look that up in your nutrition logging app. You could then, not sure if it's so they serve you the portion size or you take your portion size, but you could then have a little scale. And I know it's a bit awkward, but you only do it once. A little weight scale, you weigh it, okay? And then you know, okay, the chili con carne portion is 250 grams of weight. You pop that into your nutrition logging app, and it's going to come up with the calorie amount and the estimations of the macronutrients. And then you add something like 20% to the calorie total because you're assuming that there's more fat in there, okay? And then you look at those total calories and you're like, is that within my calorie budget or not? And for you, you're a 135-pound male in America, right? You are lighter than the average man, but they're going to serve average portion sizes for everyone. And so the average portion size for you is probably going to be bigger than what you need, unfortunately. So if you're not able to say, hey, just give me, and you may, when you've weighed this, you may be able to calculate this, just give me a half portion. Assuming you're not able to say that, where you win or lose, or where people generally win or lose, is that whether they can leave some of that food on their plate, because they could weigh it, they'll be like, okay, there's 250 grams here, but that's 1,000 calories. My budget is only 700 calories, so I'm only going to eat 2/3 of this. It could be as simple as that. You leave 1/3 of the portion size on the plate. And all you have to do now is do that for maybe 5 meals or however many meals it is, so that you just don't get sick of the lack of variety. You're finding this balance between, if you try to do this for every single new meal that you have and you have a new meal every day, it's going to be completely unsustainable. Well, I mean, some people will do that, but ideally you want to do this so that you don't have to think. You want to build a habit in so that you're not weighing. You just go in, you can eyeball the portion sizes, and maybe you check that once a month that you're still getting things right. And then
Right.
the other thing I would suggest is that, let's say that you weigh it and it's the amount that you get is perfect for calories, but it's a little bit light for the protein that you need. Well, then you could still leave, I don't know, 1/3 of it on your plate. Even though I understand, like, your mum, my mum, everyone's mum beat it into us, not literally, we have to clean our plates. Okay, but let's ignore that. You leave that 1/3 on your plate so that then you have a calorie space for some protein. And then you see if you can find some low-fat Greek yogurt or some other kind of, like a lean chicken breast or chicken fillet that's not breaded and isn't covered in oil, wasn't fried. And then that can help you meet your protein requirement for that meal, which may be around 50 grams for you if you're having 3 meals, or 70-ish grams if you're having 2 meals a day. So that's a more fuller answer to that question of what to do in the company cafeteria situation. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions around that?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Once you do more, you build up the system and the habits, and you get better at estimating the calories and what you need to include, exclude to meet the calories requirements. Makes sense.
How much effort, how difficult was that for you to do? And how long did it take you to develop a fairly seamless habit for doing that, where it did not impact your friendships at work, let's say?
Yeah, I still think that there is still some improvement to be made on my end to track it consistently, just because there's new food that is interesting that I want to try. And I only did the carrying the weight on Friday when there's less people in the office, let's say. That would be easier. But ultimately, as you said, you can't live life by worrying about what other people think about you, which is a recipe for an unhappy life. So I think I would just do the best I can. And I'm still, I think, skinny. So I think I need to also get more calories in. So I think I'm still fine with that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. How is your weight changing right now? So the thing we haven't talked about here is that you do your calisthenics. You really like your calisthenics, and your goal is to gain more muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to try and do so without feeling uncomfortable with the level of fat gain that you have. Now, we've already had an email back and forth on the necessity to gain weight consistently, but also to accept that there is going to be some fat gain along with the muscle gain. How has your weight changed, say, over the last couple of months that we have, since we had that email exchange?
Yeah. Yeah. So since our last email exchange in March, I've been started the progress tracker. It was around 134, and it fluctuated from 134 to 136, 138. And until as of today, the average weight is 139.
Okay. All right. So it's slowly creeping up. This has been a couple of months now. That looks like it's trending in the right direction. How do you feel?
Overall, I feel great. I want to take this process slow, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I do make progress. So this is like a balance between I want to build muscle, but then I also want to accept that there will be some fat gain, and there's something that I have to accept.
Yeah, it is. I know that you have been trying for a while to gain muscle without any fat as much as possible, right? How would you say that has gone for you? How successful have you been with that?
Yeah, I think that was when I framed it as a lean bulk, and my body weight it was like a cycle. Whenever I see my body weight comes up and I was triggered, and the next day I eat a little bit less. And
Right.
then that cycle keep coming back.
Yeah. Okay. Why did you do that?
That is a very good question. I did that mainly because I still want to maintain like a visible abs. So my original thought is that if I don't cut back calories, then all the fat is going to be stored in my belly. So let's cut back a little bit. That's my like initial thoughts.
Okay. And what helped you to break free of that thinking?
Yeah. So I think I did bump up my calories, but at the same time, I did also included more abs exercise during the weekends to compensate for it. And by reading your article about the comparison between control bulk versus slow bulk, there is a significant muscle gain on the line for control bulk. So I am more persuaded that, hey, control bulk is the way that I can achieve more muscle without second guessing myself.
Okay, so let's just pick apart these terms here. So I actually consider the language on the website is slow bulk and control bulk. I consider them to be the same.
Oh,
There's one above this, which is the kind of uncontrolled bulk. It's just hey, it's the seafood diet. Seafood, you eat the food. Delicious. You enjoy yourself. You just eat too much, but you know that you're going to be gaining. You know that you're going to be feeding yourself enough calories in order to fuel the muscle growth, and you will just cut off all of the excess fat later. There is something called the lean bulk that I've got in there, which is more of a theoretical one, which is where the rate of muscle gain is slower than the control bulk, slow bulk, but there is very little fat gain. Now, I've got that written there just as kind of this theoretical line that people dream of, but it's not something that ever really happens in reality. Muscle gain without fat gain, outside of the situation where someone is new to serious training, serious resistance training, or strength training in your case, calisthenics, and where they can gain some muscle and lose fat at the same time. But past a certain point, most people do not experience that, and they do need to make a decision of whether they cut or bulk. And when they bulk, they just aren't going to make any meaningful, measurable, manageable, because they can't measure it, right? And then maintain their motivation for that. So which of these terms were you talking about just then? Because this may be important moving forward for you.
yeah. Before I was doing lean bulk, which is like the cycle, what I mentioned. Every time I step up a scale, I see that my weight jump up. The next day, then I cut my calories on. That's when I do lean bulk.
Yeah.
But when I read your article, and specifically about the article, how to bulk without gaining fat. I think that is the article, how to bulk up without getting fat. That's the article. This is when I got into slow or control bulk, the term.
Yes.
So try to incorporate that method because the net muscle mass for slow or control bulk is greater than lean bulk.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there are a couple of things in your answers here that I want to dig into because I worry that you will, you're going to blink in a few months. And what I mean by that is you're going to stop, panic, and cut again. Your emotions are going to get the better of you. And I don't want that to happen to you, assuming that your goal remains the goal. So there are some things here that I want to dig into that may be some uncomfortable truths or may contrast with certain things that you've read, seen, or heard elsewhere. But I feel that I should point out to you.
Yeah.
So the first thing you've got here, that you want to gain 10 pounds of muscle in 1 year while maintaining slightly visible abs. At the same time, you want to improve your flexibility, mobility, and athleticism. Okay, so we can gain weight while still improving our flexibility, for sure. Well, depending on how flexible you are, right? It all depends, right? But, assuming that you have a ways to go with your flexibility, then there shouldn't be any constraints there. Of course, when we come to the extremes, then everything can be a compromise. But outside of the extremes of fitness, where we are extremely flexible, extremely athletic, extremely mobile, when we come to us regular folks, and I do mean us here, then there are improvements that can be made in terms of flexibility. Mobility, yes, assuming that you're not crawling through tight tunnels, okay, right, for your Navy SEAL training. Athleticism means a lot. What is an athlete? A shot putter is an athlete. A gymnast is an athlete, and a marathoner is an athlete. Okay, their physiques, peak physique for each of those sports is very different. For your athleticism, you're talking about your calisthenics training. Is that right? Your ability to do cool stuff on the bar or parallel bars or any kind of body weight work. Is that correct? Is that what you mean by athleticism?
Yeah, 100%. So things doing a bar, like front lever, human flag, things like that.
Okay. All right. Front lever, human flag. Cool. So if you gain weight, this is going to be incrementally more difficult. And I'm not sure the additional muscle is going to compensate for the increased difficulty. I think the increase in mass weight that you're going to gain is going to make some of these movements more difficult and may on net temporarily reduce your athleticism. So coming back to the first part of this, you want to gain 10 pounds of muscle in a year while maintaining slightly visible abs. To gain 10 pounds of muscle in a year, I think you're going to need to gain 20 pounds of weight. If you gain 20 pounds of weight, even if you gain 10 pounds of muscle in that time, your chin-ups are going to be affected. And in fact, your chin-ups, they're not going to be the main movement that's affected here. Your muscle-ups will be more affected. Some of your other body weight movements will be more affected. Flags, they're going to be considerably harder because of just how the leverages work. You may be able to do them equally well. You may be able to do them better for a time, but there might come a point where your athleticism, your ability to do some of these movements starts to dip. And at the point that 1 or 2 or 3 of these key movements for you starts to dip, that's where you might blink and panic. But I want you to have in mind that the goal here is not to maintain your athleticism, I don't think. Your goal here is to be more flexible, mobile, and athletic in 18 months from this point today. And if that is the case, and if you can keep this long-term goal, which I'm guessing you can, given that you've traveled, you've managed to get yourself a job at a great company in the States, right, which is hard as hell, right, to do. You're someone who can plan for the long term, but there are things here that are going to get at you and perhaps throw you off course, and that's going to be one of the doubts that may creep in. So have in mind this 18-month goal, and then know that any of this fat that you are gaining over this time, you can cut off again. And this is going to lead to rapid improvements in your athleticism once you're in that cutting phase, because you'll be pound for pound lighter and stronger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So think of it as an investment, per se.
Exactly. Right. Now, the reason that I said some of this may be uncomfortable is I don't know what content you're consuming, but the catchiest content that we're going to get is the one that sells us the idea of you can achieve everything at once. And unfortunately, for most people, that simply isn't the case. And so if people are telling you things other than this, that no, you can gain loads of muscle and You don't have to gain any fat at all. You just need to buy my program or take this supplement or whatever it is. And you're going to find this everywhere in the industry. That's not true in my experience. I think that's going to be a false dream that you'll chase that will just take you down the wrong path and a path of frustration. So just kind of a heads up on that.
Yeah. Having it, like hearing like the roadmap, plan it out, think of it as a trade-off rather than a muscle loss. I think it's helpful. Yeah, it's like an investment process.
Certainly a temporary trade-off. You've mentioned in here, there's a fella, I'm not familiar with him. I don't know this person, so do not consider this a critique. His name's Chris Herrier. I understand he's famous in the calisthenics world. He has a popular YouTube channel. He's written some content or created some content for Bar Stars, a popular channel for calisthenics work. I've only seen some images. The thing that you need to know there is that many of the people, not all, but many of the people in the calisthenics world, again, I don't know this person. I don't want to sound too negative. It's not about this person.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the physiques that you see were not built using calisthenics. People build their physiques with other methods, and then they've already got that level of muscle mass, and then they switch over because it's a great sell. Like by limiting yourself to calisthenics, it's harder to build muscle than if you were just using resistance training machines or free weights. Why is that? Because it's just harder to target the specific muscles and to incrementally adjust the load that you're using each time to drive that very specific and strategic progressive overload. So if your goal is, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do calisthenics. I'm just saying that the role models that you look up to, they may not have achieved their physique that way, or they may have achieved their physiques with secretly some drugs, because, let's face it, people are not honest about this, and all of the financial incentives are skewed towards those who can cheat. Another thing is people who stand out, they get the attention and they tend to be the genetic outliers. Again, if not people who are secretly using some special supplement S. And I'm not talking sleep there. And there's one more point here, and that is that you have people who are in the calisthenics world who are absolutely brilliant and have absolutely not used any drugs, and who are absolutely honest that they have just done calisthenics, but they've done it all their lives. These are former gymnasts who are now selling calisthenics programs. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but they've done it since they were 6 years old, and they did it for hours, hours and hours and hours and hours a day, every day, until they were, 16 or 17 or whatever age it is, where they realize that they can't quite make it to the Olympic level. And then I'm not sure whether there is anything that they can go further there. And so they end up dropping out. But hey, they've got this incredible physique, and boom, now they can be a trainer. Oh, and now I can niche down. And now I can teach calisthenics. And there is nothing wrong with that. And I think that's really cool what people do. But the reality is that us doing 4 hours of their calisthenics program a week isn't what made them look like what they did. They were spending hours and hours a day having fun from when they were a kid for 10 and 15 years. It's kind of the point that I want to make. So just keep kind of realistic expectations in mind there.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, definitely give me a different perspectives on thinking about the focus, the shift. Yeah.
How are you training your legs?
Pistol squat. Yeah. So
Okay.
Pistol squat, progressively make it harder. I started from assisted pistol squat, leg assisted, and then jump squat, and then pistol squat is I actually just mastered the skill recently. So I would say this is I keep progressing on doing more reps on the assisted versions and doing more progressive overload, using more reps for calisthenics. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And are you open to I'm not sure what the rules are here, but when you're able to do these unassisted, let's say for 15 reps, are you open to now grabbing a dumbbell and clutching that to your chest as you do these? Or is that kind of taboo in the calisthenics world? I assume that's okay. I mean,
Yeah, that is okay. Yeah, I am holding a dumbbell.
because that way you are able to then just fine tune the weight. You could use a weighted vest as well. That would be fine as well. But what you don't want to be doing here is like very high rep sets, like where you're doing like 20, 25, 30 reps or more, because it's going to be very painful to do. It's going to build a lot of fatigue, and you're just not going to want to push yourself. It's going to be very difficult mentally to keep pushing yourself to the required closeness to failure there. And really your goal here is strength. So lower rep sets is going to be more effective for you. So then that's going to require you to add more, have more resistance. So a dumbbell could be that weighted vest. That's going to be helpful. Exactly. You mentioned about doing the abs in an effort to control abdominal fat. Is that something you're still doing?
Yes, this is something that I'm still doing.
Okay. You can do ab work. It's not going to help keep abdominal fat low, though. It's not going to affect that. We can't meaningfully affect the level of fat in a specific body part by training that body part. It's more global. There is some slight nuance to that. This is why I'm choosing the word meaningfully. So as you are gaining weight and as you are gaining these next 20 pounds over the course of this year, you are going to gain some fat. That fat, unfortunately, is going to be skewed towards your midsection. That's your stomach, where you're going to mostly see it. That's the sides, so your love handles, people refer them to, and lower back fat mainly, because we tend to lose fat from the top down. You're going to gain it from the bottom up. I know you don't like to think about these things, but I'm just telling you so that you know what to expect. And it doesn't really matter how much ab work you do. You're not going to be able to just burn the fat from that place or keep it from being put on in that place. If you think about it, your abs are pulling the energy from primarily the glycogen stores in those abdominal muscles, which is carbs stored in the abs, along with water. When we're burning fat, this is your fat cells releasing fat from them into the bloodstream because there is a calorie deficit that your body is trying to make up for. And your bloodstream is global, right? It's all around your body. And so it's not like we work our abs and then as we're working the abs, we're taking fat from the fat stores around the abs. It's just a different fueling mechanism. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind as well.
Right. So essentially, there isn't a spot reduction in a sense.
I didn't use that word, but yes, that is the word that you would want to Google. And if you were to Google that, you're going to see people arguing about it no end. But the fact of the matter is this, like you're looking to make a really meaningful difference to your physique. You're looking to gain 10 pounds of muscle. In order to do that, you're going to need to gain a significant amount of weight that is going to add fat to your body. And at these levels, there is no spot reduction that we can do that's going to keep the ab fat at bay, unfortunately. So, yeah, I wish there was, but that's just, again, it's just kind of realistic expectations there. So just bear that in mind. And bear in mind, again, that this is an investment for you. All right.
Yep.
How confident are you feeling right now moving forward?
On a scale of 1 to 10,
Sure.
I would rate 8 out of 10. It's just that I need to get my mental right. I think having the right mindset, I think this is going to be important for me to sustain and not regret on following this plan here.
What is it that's in your mind right now? You say about getting the mindset right, but what is it
Oh
you're
yeah,
thinking?
yeah,
What is it you're worried about? Yeah, tell me.
yeah. I think still just a little bit of insecurity about like the fat that we mentioned, right? This is something that I need to get my mindset passed through. So I need to think of it as an investment. So I think it is definitely a fear for me to see myself bloated again since I did that before. But I want to make sure that this is only the surefire way to build muscle and get past the mentality.
It's certainly the surefire way to do it, yes. It's going to be the path of least regret, as long as you can get your mind around that. You could, actually, let me ask, can you see your abs right now?
Yeah, I think I could.
Okay, I think you could. So you could get leaner. Okay, so then what you're saying here is that you could probably lose 5 or 10 pounds of fat, or no?
I'm not sure. I did link the photo in the spreadsheet if you want to take a look.
You did? Okay, all right, let's do
Yeah.
this. Which spreadsheet, the RIP body tracker? Or,
Yeah.
okay, my apologies, I did not see that. And is this something that we can share on the video or no? Entirely your choice, no pressure.
Yeah, let me think more about it. Yeah, I can get back to you.
That's okay. Let's consider it a no. Any hesitation? Let's just consider it a no. It's fine. It's not.
Okay.
Don't worry. I want everyone who comes on to be comfortable. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you could lose here. Okay. If you were to lose 10 pounds right now, you could lose 10 pounds. You are what I would describe as maybe 14-ish% body fat. Okay. You have, actually, let me have another look. Yeah. Perhaps about 14-ish% body fat. You could lose 10 pounds. You could, but if you did, you would be very lean. Because again, because of your weight, because of your height, right? Because of your size, right? Most people, if they're 14, like a lot of the clients I work with, they're like 6 foot or whatever, like, and they're 200 pounds or whatever. And then if 10 pounds is often not going to be enough for them if they were 14-ish% body fat, right? So you've got 2 choices here. You can continue moving into your bulk, but see it as this long-term thing. This, I am going to end up gaining around 10 pounds of fat from here, and try to think whether you would be okay with it. Alternatively, cut off 5 pounds first, then move into a bulk. So think to yourself, right now, could I gain 20 pounds of weight and 10 pounds of that being fat, or even 10 to 12 pounds of that being fat over the next year? If I don't think mentally I could handle that, then get a little bit leaner first. Spend the next 2 months stripping off 5 to 7 pounds of fat, and then start the bulk again, so that you're starting from a leaner point, so that even though you're now feeling a bit too lean, you're like, I'm a bit too lean, and maybe my mum and dad, they wouldn't like this now, right? They're like, too lean, I've worked so hard for this, right? But that's a temporary sacrifice again, so that you have enough runway for your bulk. Again, only if you don't think you could gain that weight and feel comfortable, and you would stop partway through because of that. Does that make sense?
Right, makes sense. Yeah. Basically, if I do go with option 1, I need to really have my mindset right. Even though I gain fat, I still need to push through it for that 10 pounds of muscle, which means 20 pounds of body weight.
Yeah, exactly. There is no correct answer here. You could gain that weight and you would still be, I don't think you're going to have any issues with your health markers. I would just note here, I'm not a doctor, but it's not like you're going to gain that weight and suddenly be unhealthy or overweight, right? So this is purely down to you and what's in your mind here and what you think may or may not hold you back. Which are the lesser of the 2 evils right here, right? When it comes to this investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do calisthenics people get around the lack of hamstring training and the lack of, you're going to be training your glutes when you're in that very stretched position for your pistol squats. You're going to be training, it's going to be very, very quad dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything there for your glutes? The reason I'm mentioning this is because, do you have anything there for your hamstrings? The reason I'm mentioning this is because this is a very large part of your legs. The legs are a very large part of your body. Your legs are your wheels. They carry us around in life. They're a big part of athleticism. I'm just wondering if you're not against it.
Mm-hmm.
You could get to a gym and train your legs with some machines once a week. I mean, ideally twice a week, but again, I'm trying to not change your program here too much, because obviously it's something that you really love and you enjoy. I'm just wondering if that is an option for you, just given how much of your body that is.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm open to machine leg work, but for calisthenics, to answer your questions, I do sometimes do lunges that help with hamstring. I think jump squat, when you squat up, that also help with lunges, help with hamstring. I'm thinking about L-sit. L-sit, I think, is more about hips rather than hamstring.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is also something that I need to take consideration, because essentially hamstring is like the big part on the back of our leg.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
That posterior chain. And
Mhm.
when we're getting into later life, so you're absolutely nailing this. Can I get my ass off of the toilet? Right? You can do that. Yeah, your pistol squats, crushing it. Amazing. The next thing is, can I pick up the sofa, right, and move it out of the house? Right, you're going to have to bend down and pick up something heavy. Currently in your training, there isn't anything that is bending down and picking up something heavy. It's this kind of deadlift movement, this posterior chain movement. Yes, you've got your upper body pulls, your rows and your chin-ups, right? But yeah, ideally what I'd do if I were you is add in some deadlifts and some seated hamstring curls. If you could just do that twice a week, happy days.
Got it. See the hamstring curl or weighted deadlift. Okay.
I would do deadlifts and seated hamstring curls. Deadlifts first, then seated hamstring curls. You can just do 3 sets of 5 for the deadlifts and work in from there. You know, you've seen on the website. And you could just do 3 sets of 10 to 12 for those hamstring curls. Go very light at first because you're going to be very sore. That soreness is going to make you feel uncomfortable. It is going to interfere with your calisthenics training initially, but like with anything, the soreness quickly fades when we repeat what we do. So then there is actually a benefit, if you can, of doing it, say, twice a week, because again, you just get used to it much quicker. And so going in much lighter than you feel you can initially is the best way to do it, to avoid that soreness, because that soreness can lead to panic, and that panic can lead to people saying, oh, I can't possibly handle this training program, or, it's just not for me. And then they quit early, which is a shame. So just a quick heads up on that. Yeah.
Actually, a follow up for that, for the deadlift, weighted deadlift, is there options to do dumbbell, barbell? Yeah, for that.
Yes. So you could do traditional conventional deadlift, so feet together, regular deadlift. You could do an RDL. You could do a dumbbell deadlift. You could do a single leg deadlift.
Okay.
And the easiest way to do that would be you have your left leg fairly straight, not railrod straight, your left arm holding on to something to support you, like you do with supported pistol squats, a dumbbell in your right arm, and your right leg goes backward and you hinge from there. You can do the reverse as well if you'd like. And actually, I think I've got in the program, no, maybe not. Actually, these are 2 separate spreadsheets. If you go to rippbody.com/programs, that will then link you to my Google Doc there. The 7th, 8th, or 9th tab, the last tab in there, one of the last tabs in there is a link to all these exercises that I'm mentioning and what I consider to be good form. It's often going to take you out to a YouTube channel of one of the guys I know in the industry who I think's great, if not my own, but yeah.
Yeah, I love how you put all those resources available for us to consume. I think this is something that is rare that I find on the website. This is something that I also very cherish and appreciate. Yeah, thank you for doing that.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Like, the way I see it, my goal isn't to be the center of attention here. My goal is to present the best resources that I can. And if I think that someone else has already done it better and I couldn't do better, then I will share that. There's no point in me redoing somebody else's work. And then that also gives credit to that person as well. And I know that they appreciate that as well. It's the same with me. If someone gives a hat, if they reference my work, I very much appreciate that. Some people, I think they feel that they shouldn't do that. I feel frankly the opposite. Hey, this guy's amazing. Jeff Nippard's video on cable curl biceps, incredible. Link, right? It helps him. It helps me. It helps you guys. Yeah. That's always going to be my philosophy on these things. So, Brian, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. Please do keep emailing me with your questions. Let me know how you get on. Look forward to seeing your transformation over the next 18 months.
Thank you, Andy. This is exactly the clarity that I needed. Yeah, it's happy to be here.
You're most welcome. I get people who I feel are in a similar position to yourself from time to time. They're not necessarily doing the calisthenics training, but they are looking to bulk up and break free. And this next stage that you're in can be a little bit scary without the clarity. So I appreciate you coming on, because what you've done here, I know is not easy. And it's not just for you, it's for them as well. And I know that they will find this super helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to join me on the pod, please just shoot me an email, andy@ripbody.com, and I'll send over the application questionnaire. I appreciate you listening. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Also, if you aren't a member of the email list, please go to ripbody.com, enter your email address in there. I'm going to send over our free programs. I'm going to send over our nutrition tracking spreadsheet and my initial setup guide ebook, and a 15-day kickstart course on how to avoid the mistakes that people typically make when they're getting their nutrition and their training right. Now, if you're interested in coaching, we would love to hear from you. Go to ripbody.com, click on the coaching button in the menu, and I would love to hear how we can help. Thank you. I'll catch you next time.